Monetary red alert in the world is playing at full strength. Judging by the article by Mark Blythe and Eric Lonergan, published yesterday on the website of the famous and influential journal Foreign Affairs, entitled Transfer Print Less but More, Why Central Banks Should Give Money Directly to the People, Print Out Less but Transferred More, Why Central Banks Should Give Money Directly to the People, Keynesian and monetarist minds that rule the world have entered desperation phase. This has led to the absurd conclusion that if their fiscal and monetary stimulus have failed to boost the global economy, it's time to do more of the same, but to an extreme degree. For that, they have even resorted to the figure used by the most famous monetarist, Milton Friedman, of throwing money from helicopters. The authors are explicit and say it is time for the politicians of the United States and other developed countries consider using an updated version of that helicopter, transfer money directly to the people, and especially the poorest. The idea is that this is a direct, more cheap and efficient way to expand demand, instead of trying to do it through asset purchases, as the program of the American Fed, and lower interest rates. Thus, the government could equally distribute the cash to households or, even better, go to 80% of lower-income households in terms of, proposed by the authors. This, according to them, would result in people with lower incomes were more likely to use, and also offset the growing income inequality. The authors say there is no reason for governments not to try to end recessions if they can, for which cash transfers would be an effective way to do it also instantaneously. They also claim that it is urgent that this type of innovation is implemented, because central bankers are trying to manage economies' 21st century tools of the past century. Also ensure that all that is needed to turn the tide is courage, brain, and leadership to try something new. Finally, occurrences Pure Style and Miguel Angel Mansura Gustavo Madero, with its idea of raising the minimum wage in Mexico by decree. And that is beyond what may seem attractive to such proposals. The reality is that there is nothing new in them. Ultimately, it is the same wrong and absurd that a global depression caused by an argument over debt, consumer credit, can be solved with more of the same, and if it fails, will always be the option of giving money to stimulate the economy. The form it takes that stimulus will always be a costume of the same, always create money from nothing. The drug of the system needs increasingly larger doses to survive for less time each day. The authors say they believe that such a measure would not cause inflation, because not even the historical monetary printing of all major central banks, with the Federal Reserve to the head, has caused. What is actually admitted that inflation has manifested itself creating new bubbles in stock markets and bond markets as well as rising commodity prices. The importance of the latter, incidentally, is diluted in the indices' official inflation. Thus, these always look under control. However, allocating money as proposed, would be to put the throttle when you are facing the ravine. The typical diagnosis that more spending on the part of operators needed to expand employment, wage growth and avoid the dreaded deflation, which will no remedy before the runaway inflation, is fallacious. That Keynesian mistake is costing the world entering a new dark age. Instead, what he urges the world is more savings, which naturally makes it possible interest rates fall and grow the economy. Skip the step of saving, printing money and manipulating the low interest rates is misleading to the misallocation of capital and new bubbles. Create scratch tickets is not innocuous. It is naive to think, as stated in the article of Foreign Affairs, the central banks have enough to combat inflation once this is revealed at last, as eager in the consumer price index weapons. It is demonstrated by countless examples in the history like that of post-revolutionary France. The printing more money as proposed, always have immediate results positive, but of very short duration. As if he really were a drug, once you pass the effects and the economy begins to collapse, who previously benefited from money created require still believe much, as the voice of both intellectuals and the people back unanimous, we need more money. The frenzy cannot be stopped. A prelude to disaster. Andrew Dixon White in his book Fiat Money Inflation in France, summarized it this way: despite the fact that paper money issued was the direct obligation of the state, that much of this accrued interest, all was guaranteed with the best real estate in France, and that consistent penalties in fines, imprisonment, and death, were applied from time to maintain its circulation to fixed values. There was a steady depreciation of its value until it reached the 0 point and finally culminated in the repudiation. We have not learned anything. All this nonsense is taking the most seasoned real monetary assets to seek refuge, gold and silver investors in large quantities. In this space I have reported since last year has come to raise both the demand, the market enters backwardation, a sign of scarcity. Not that gold is ending, but actually is hiding in the hands of holders who do not loosen the imminence of an economic cataclysm like never before mankind has known. The money is always good to hide when evil abounds. Therefore, the landmark publication of Foreign Affairs is not more than the official on the red alert before glowed yellow. Those who have plunged the world are more determined than ever to dig deeper. It's about time for some brilliant ruler begins to wonder why we have not done this yet, and put in place the policy or a similar version. So fasten your seat belts as the worst of the crisis is coming.